another edition of Hump-Day Hockey. I'm your host, LA Kings Dave. With me is Brittany, aka Pitt Pens Pats, and Ryan, aka Golf for Miami. Tonight we're going to discuss, obviously, the three Game 7's we have going tonight. A lot of exciting action from East Coast, Central, and then West Coast. We got the Masterson trophy nominations announced today. We are going to preview round two as tonight goes as best we can before the games wrap up. And then we're going to discuss briefly GM firings and hirings over the last week and any free agent acquisitions or any moves potentially by teams going forward. So if you have any questions, let us know. Tonight's question for you from us is, what is your most memorable Game 7 and why? So, guys, thanks again for being here. Ryan, welcome back.
I'm glad to be back after I missed last week due
Yes,
to
but you missed it for
sitting
a very good reason. Why don't you tell us about
uh,
that?
it was the most memorable hockey experience I have ever had in my life and probably will ever have. I'm not separated enough from it to really put it into any other, significant context other than that. Being in Columbus to watch them come back from being down 3-0 against the Penguins was just awesome to be a part of. That crowd was super rocking. I'm sure people have seen and heard the videos of how just raucous that place was. And the next day, I definitely did not have my voice anymore. Even as not a Blue Jackets fan, I would be lying if I said that I was not crying. Um, Not only at the beginning of the game, because it was my first ever playoff game I've been to, but after that game was over, I just felt so happy for that fan base and the city of Columbus really to, embrace hockey how they have embraced it, and hopefully they can continue that going forward. So.
For sure. I was glad to see them finally get a playoff win. Brittany, what's going on with you today?
I don't know, just watching the games and keeping a close eye on the Philly Rangers game to see who we're going to be playing next round.
That's
And yeah,
anybody in particular that you want to face in the next round?
I have no idea. Um, we're not that good against Philly in the playoffs, and I'm kind of scared of them. So I don't really know. Like that would be just terrifying playing Philly in the playoffs. And the Rangers, Henrik Lundqvist is a good goaltender, and you can't really count him out. So I don't know.
Of
Uh,
course.
yeah.
Well, let's quickly go over last night. We only had one game, obviously. It was that Rangers and Philly game. We saw Philly stave off elimination with their 5-2 victory. Wayne Simmons getting a hat trick. I personally thought that they were going to come out from this game and be a little more motivated after that win, and I thought that when you saw them thump the Rangers like that, that maybe they had something that Coach Berube had going for them, where he'd figured something out against them. But once again, the matchups with Alain Vigneault seems like Philly just can't crack them very easily at Madison Square Garden. So
There's nothing quite like having your hometown crowd behind you as well. I'm sure that was an extra motivator for the Flyers in Philly last night. I was kind of wondering if that fight at the end of the game, uh, you know, put some extra motivation and brought some of any momentum that you can carry game to game back into the Rangers side of the ice. Kind of helps set the tone for tonight.
do you think that? Well, who do you think then has been the key tonight so far in the game? As you've been watching, who do you think's setting the tone for the Rangers? Or do you
Uh,
think it's just been mostly Lundqvist doing what Lundqvist does?
I mean, I
Brittany.
think I think a lot of people have been playing really well in this game. I haven't been watching it like too closely because like other things have been going on. But you know, Lundqvist has been playing really, really well. I've seen Stahl doing things like playing well, getting in there. Um, I guess maybe blocking some shots. Like he's doing really well defensively. I guess. I don't know. I guess it mostly has been Lundqvist. I mean, he's doing really well and it's showing.
Right. Well, I wish I could I'm sorry I'm asking you guys the questions here. I just got off work at 5 here, so I didn't even get to watch the first period, so I don't know if Ryan, you were able to catch it or not.
No, I haven't really caught any of it.
Okay. Well, are you guys more excited then for the Wild or the Kings games going on later tonight?
I personally am excited for the Wild game, obviously, because whoever wins that game will face the Hawks in the next round. I'm really pulling for the Wild, partially because I think that they match up better against the Hawks. For the Hawks, I think we have a better chance of moving on in the next round if we face the Wild. But also because if the Wild were to get past the Colorado Avalanche, two things would happen. Patrick Wall is probably going to go nuts, which would be interesting to see how he handles that. Um, and then also, if the Wild were to get past the Avalanche and then get past the Hawks, I would much rather see that than see the Avalanche advance. I think the Wild are a team that their fan base kind of deserves for them to go a little further in the playoffs. I know the Avalanche have gone from last to first, so you could argue that seeing them go further would be cool. But I think the Wild should probably deserve it a little bit more. So I'm really hoping that is Darcy Kemper starting again for them tonight? Do you know? I haven't
Yes,
seen
he
that.
is. And
Yes, he
he
is.
has not necessarily done that well on the road. So
Yeah,
I think it's up to him to make sure that he's got a game face on because I don't think if he cracks for even a minute, the Avalanche are gonna let down at all. They're gonna come out flying.
yeah, especially at home for the Avalanche. So it should be a really interesting game to see if Kemper cracks or not. He obviously has shown, um, when he has gotten the starts at home that he's definitely has that ability to play well. So we'll see what happens.
For sure. You know, I'm rooting for the Wild tonight only because I'm not a huge Patrick Waugh fan. I know that maybe that shouldn't matter, but as a Kings fan, he did a lot to piss us off back in the day. So it would also just be nice because Minnesota is the hockey state,
Yes.
and I feel like they've had, as far as professional hockey goes, a lot of misfortune with their
Yes.
team moving to Dallas, which was great for Dallas, and like no offense to them, but I just feel like Minnesota should, it would feel good to see Minnesota advance.
Yep.
Whereas with the Avalanche, they're still young, and I don't really have any personal connection to them, but I feel like they'll have their day with all the young guys they have, and I'd rather see some of the other guys on Minnesota that have been there for a while, like Koivu and Sutter and Parisi and guys like this that have been in the league for a while to keep going forward. I like their team a little bit better, and I'm hoping that, but I just don't see it happening tonight, unfortunately. I think that Waz matchups against just making sure that Suter doesn't ever go up against McKinnon as best he can throughout this series when he's at home have really played a big part, seeing as McKinnon has all of his points at home. I don't know, Brittany, you've been following this one at all?
Yeah, I've watched parts of most of the games. I really love the Wild. They're like one of my top Western teams. Um, and I'm really hoping that they pull this out, but I don't know if they can compete with Colorado at home. Like Colorado at home this series has been pretty good. The first two games they were dominant, and um, I don't know. I just don't think they can pull it out. I want them to, but I don't see it happening.
So I guess at this point, the Wild are basically Columbus West for all of us. We want them to do it, but we're not sure that they can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that series has been all home wins, and I know how that was from last year.
Yep.
This game just since the salary cap and just the teams are just so well matched these days that it's all about coaching and matchups for the most part so often. And regardless of how much you see hustle or other things like that, if you're constantly matching up your best D-men against somebody's offense, it just shows over the course of a series how important that is. Moving on to tonight's Kings game, I obviously have a vested interest in one side, but not just because I'm not. I mean, I think a lot of people have kind of started rooting for the Kings tonight only because potential team history could be made if we come back. I know last week when we talked, I was really down because the Kings had just gone down 0-3, but now it's 3-3, and we have a chance for a rather historic, as far as Kings history goes, for potential to come back from 0-3, which would be only the fourth time in league history that happens. And I don't know if you guys are rooting for the Kings or not, but are you at least excited for this, or do you don't really care? You think it's not that big of a deal nowadays because it just happened 4 years ago? Maybe just because of the balance of the league?
I'm excited for it. I'm rooting for the Kings, because they're another one of the Western teams I like. I really like Anze Kopitar. He's a great, great player. Um, and I guess it did happen in 2010, and I
Yes.
just want the Flyers to shut up about it. So, I mean, I guess that's my reason, but it's really hard to win 4 games in a row during the playoffs. Like doing a reverse sweep, let alone like sweeping, is just really, really hard. So, I hope they can pull it off, but I'm not sure if they can.
Yeah, as I said in our first podcast, I'm really rooting for the Sharks, partially because of the Miami connection that they have on their team, but also because they don't have a cup yet, and I think it would be good for them to get one to complete the California trifecta. But there's just something about a comeback of this magnitude that the Kings have been able to pull off so far that I want to see them be able to complete it. I know it doesn't happen all that often, and we just had one, but to be able to see two like this so close just makes it that much more extra special. And if Jonathan Quick can be Jonathan Quick, they definitely have the ability and the skill to do it. So I, it's going to be a good game, one way or the other. I have a feeling it's going to be tight. It's not going to be like the Hawks Blues Game 6 where the Hawks were able to pour it on there at the end and really just claim the series. I have a feeling it's going to be tight. I wouldn't mind see it going to an overtime or two, just to really nail home that hockey playoff mentality and hockey playoff tension that we get every year. But it's hard for me to really pick a team and root for them in this Game 7 because of those points I mentioned. I picked the Sharks, but it would be cool to see the Kings do it. So I'm just rooting for good hockey at this point.
Fair enough. We have a scoring update. Philly scored.
Ooh.
Atkinson scored to make it 2-1 with 13 minutes left in the game. So this is far from over right now. I know that. I noticed last night, obviously, the Rangers pulled their goalie with 5 minutes left. Last week, or earlier this week, I should say, Bruce Boudreau thanked Patrick Waugh for pulling his goalie so early so often this season.
Yep.
And somebody said that that may have attributed to up to 7 points in the standings for the Avalanche. So we've seen this more and more as the playoffs have gone on. These goalies getting pulled sooner and sooner. And for years now, we've always heard that statistically it's a better idea and it gives you a better chance if you pull them earlier than most people would. Because for years, most people pull them around 1 minute, maybe 1:30. But I think that when you see a guy like Waugh come in and do that and shake it up, do you think that there's going to be a shift in the defensive strategy for that now?
I don't know. I mean, statistics have always said things like that, like pulling your goalie earlier is better, and going forward on fourth down is, better statistically, but people still don't do it. So I I really don't know. Um, it'd be more exciting if they do, because empty net goals or empty net like hockey is really, really exciting, because even if like it's even strength, it's like the team has a power play, and if the team does have a power play, it's like crazy. And some of the best, like most exciting hockey is just like, oh my god, they're going towards our empty net, or oh my god, we're gonna get an empty net goal, and it gets like really, really exciting. So I hope it does trend that way, because I like when they pull the goalie. It's fun to explain to my like family who like doesn't understand hockey at all. It's like, why are they taking their goalie out? Wouldn't that like make it easier for the other team to win? And it's like, it's fun and it's interesting and it's different. Like you don't have that in football and baseball and basketball.
Yeah,
It's a different dynamic.
for sure. You know, we have a couple answers to our question for most exciting Game 7. We have Twerk for Twerk on Twitter. Says last year's Leafs Bruins, words cannot describe being there live for it at all. Never seen Garden so loud after game tying goal. It's definitely something that is fresh in our memories. Is that 3-1 lead that Toronto had in Game 7, and then the comeback for the Bruins. Fantastic game there. Nando says Boston, Vancouver, because I watched all of it, and it was a complete contrast of what the series was as a whole. Obviously, that was Boston winning in Vancouver in Game 7 in 2011 to clinch their first Stanley Cup since, I think, 72. So, that's off the top of my head. Somebody, I'm sure, will fact check that. Dr. Liam Will says Sabres Penguins in 2001, because I remember it so vividly. Darius Kasparaitis scoring the OT goal, diving and kicking his feet. I don't know if you remember that one, Brittany.
I started watching hockey in 2009 when I came to Pittsburgh, like in the fall. So, no, I don't remember that. Like, I didn't even know like the NHL was a league or that professional hockey was a thing until I came to Pittsburgh. So, like, I didn't see the Pens win the cup. I didn't see anything until like, till that season. But I have seen like replays of it with like Darius Kasparaitis and like sliding across the ice and everyone just like piling on top of him, which that's kind of cool to see. You know, people like you don't see celebrations like that much
Yeah.
anymore. People more go towards the boards and like, cheer and bang on the boards or whatever sometimes, but you don't see people just like running out into the middle of the ice. Except for with Kane and OT when he beat the Flyers. That was exciting.
Well, another thing about that, in '92, that was. I'm surprised that Liam said that because he's a Sabres fan, but that was Pittsburgh winning that, and then that year they would go on and win their second championship in a row against, of course, Mike Keenan and Ryan Chicago Blackhawks. So that was something actually that kind of leads into something else I was going to mention, which was Mike Keenan winning today with Metalurg in the KHL. They won the Gagarin Cup today, and it's the first. Mike Keenan is now the first coach to ever win a Stanley Cup in both the NHL and KHL, and is the first North American to win a KHL Cup, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ryan remembers back in the day when the Blackhawks had Mike Keenan as their coach, but
I know of the history. I don't really remember it. I very similar to Brittany. I've only really been seriously following hockey for like the last 6 years. So I know he was with us, but I don't really remember much, if any of it at all. So
all right, that's cool.
so.
Well, today,
Are we gonna answer our favorite Game 7s? Our most memorable? Is that
you
what?
you want to say your favorite Game 7s, you mean?
Yeah, our favorite or our most memorable Game 7s. Are we allowed to answer that question?
Of course, go for it.
I was going to say Detroit last year for us, Game 7, coming back from being down 3-1 in the series, going to overtime. Brent Seabrook with the wrister. That was probably my most memorable, simply because of where we were at in the series to where how we were able to bounce back and come back and finish them off at home. That's probably been my most memorable since and I know Boston fans are probably not going to be too happy with that, since their Game 7 was probably a little bit more momentous to them, but that's what it is for me. So.
Well, this question is more for you. Like, what affected you the most as a fan? Like, where it's your most memorable moment. If that's your most memorable, it's because it was near and dear to you.
That's a good point. What about you guys?
My most memorable Game 7 doesn't really involve the Penguins, because the Game 7s that we have had were like, you know, not very good for us. The ones that I've watched. Um, but I'm gonna agree with Nando, the Boston Vancouver series, because I watched like I was in Pittsburgh that summer, and I had like the shitty apartment with like no air conditioning, and like I'd sit there and like watch the games, and then for the last few games I like got out of class and sped to Brian's house so I could like watch it. And I remember like running downstairs to like watch it on his TV, and I'm like, "Oh, how many goals did Boston score?" Like, jokingly saying that because like they had scored so many like in the games before. And then I look at the score and they were up 4-0, and I just like lost it. It was just so funny. And then, we were just like watching the coverage and cheering because like we hated Vancouver so much. And we wanted Boston to win so badly. And then they did, and it was great. And then we went out for victory, like pancakes at this place called Eaton Park. It's like a Pittsburgh chain diner thing, and it was great. It was a cool experience because it was like my first Stanley Cup playoffs I've gotten to experience with somebody else. Like the ones against the Hawks Flyers, I was sitting in my living room back home all by myself because no one wanted to watch hockey with me, and I remember Patrick Kane scoring and just cheering at the top of my lungs, but it was like just me by myself. But this one was different because I actually had like people to celebrate with, and it was fun.
Yeah. Well, sports in general is always better with people. I mean, that's why we go to games, even though you get better coverage on TV, because it's camaraderie. It's human nature to want to share your emotions and experiences with somebody else. So it always makes everything better. For me personally, my most memorable, which I wrote about on Way Back Wednesday today, was the Kings in '93. Because as a fan, I didn't become I became a fan when Gretzky came to LA, but I didn't immediately because my dad didn't take me to a game until the 89-90 season. And then the Kings won the Division 91, but their first Stanley Cup run really was 93. And I remember that we were playing Toronto, and they had known, and Toronto was a huge favorite, but Toronto was in the Western Conference at that time, and they were going to divide the league the next year when Anaheim moved in, and Toronto was moving back over to the East. So all of Canada was rooting against us because they wanted that Toronto-Montreal series in the final because they knew it was going to be the last time that that'll probably ever happen. So we had all of Canada rooting against us and a lot of hockey people, and Wayne Gretzky scored a hat trick in Game 7 and had an assist too. And he said after the game it was probably his greatest game ever. And obviously a lot of Leafs fans I know hated that, and mostly not because of the Kings and not because of the whole situation, but there was a non-call on Gretzky when he high-sticked Doug Gilmour, and Kerry Fraser didn't call it. And so we had a lot of hate for us from a lot of people that series, and I just remember how happy I was that not only did we finally make the finals, but just like all the people that were talking about it and how many people seemed to be rooting against us, that I was just like, yeah, screw you guys. So
That had to have felt so vindictive, so cathartic for you.
yeah, that was the first time, like, man, it was just so much emotion, of course. I mean, we lost in the finals, but whatever. At least we got there finally. So, moving on, just, let's see, we got a couple other people talking. We got T-Rex has just been making some comments on our Twitter. She says, sports is better with people, quote, I watch every game alone. I'm sorry, T-Rex.
Oh yeah, because she was
If
saying
you,
that.
I know she's in Kentucky. There's not a lot of hockey there, but anytime you want to come to California, you're more than welcome to come watch a game with us. So I know it can be hard. For a long time growing up here, we didn't have the fan base we do now for the Kings or Ducks, and I spent a lot of time listening to games alone by myself as well. So as a kid, I remember falling asleep to Kings games.
I remember having to beg my dad to turn on the Stanley Cup Finals during the 2010 season because, no one else in my family was a hockey fan, and no one else really seemed to even care. And I was like, but my team is in it. They could win the whole thing. It's like, and to get my dad to understand, he's been a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and so have I. I've grown up with it. I had to explain it to him in the terms of, this is like the World Series of hockey. You need to let me watch. And he finally understood after that. And so we have a projection unit in our basement, and so we were watching it down there in HD. And I remember when Kane scored that goal, it was me alone in the basement, and I was just sitting there in disbelief because I didn't see the puck go in. And I was like, wait, did we really win? Like, so when I didn't really get to have like all of those emotions that a person normally has when their team wins the cup, because I wasn't sure for the longest time. And then by the time it was finally like official, I was like, holy shit, we did it, and it was already too late. So when we won last year, I finally got to have those emotions, and I was like, just sitting there crying and like so happy and all that stuff. Completely different experience. And of course, this last year I was able to, I didn't have to convince them that my family actually watched with me this time, so that was nice.
It's a good story. We got a question on our Q&A here on Google+. We got Nick, who's asking, does Hump-Day Hockey only cover hockey in North America? No, we don't, Nick, but for the most part, we only, those of us that are at least hosting, tend to follow North American hockey the most. Although, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about the KHL finals today. Metalurg winning, Mike Keenan winning. I felt bad. I was actually rooting for Prague in that one because no non-Russian team has ever won the KHL title before. But also, if you have other leagues from Finland or Sweden that you want to talk about or any questions like that, you can shoot them to us, and if we can answer them, we will. I know yesterday the German league wrapped up as well. That actually was kind of cool because in the German league, for those that don't know, 10 teams make the playoffs, which is a little bit odd, but the number 9 seed won the championship yesterday in Game 7, and that was the first time a number 9 seed had ever won in the German league. And they are, oh man, I forget, but I know that they are one of the smallest teams in the league as well. So that's always cool when you see a team. I mean, their stadium only holds 4,500.
Dang, that's like a
They were
Columbus
playing.
stadium.
Yeah, they were playing against I think Cologne, and Cologne Stadium holds like 18,000. So it was definitely a small guy, number 9 seed versus big guy, and it was just it's one of those David and Goliath stories that you always like to see.
I will do a shout out for
Korea.
Korea, who does a weekly KHL report podcast on our HockeyCast, and she does that on Wednesday night. She's just sick this week, so she couldn't do it tonight. Maybe if there is a demand for it, we might be able to talk her into doing one later this week. I just don't know what exactly is going on with that. I just saw her tweet out that she wouldn't be able to do it tonight because she's sick. So if you are looking specifically for KHL or those leagues overseas, that would definitely be the podcast you want to listen into, more so than the others.
For sure. And I've listened to, and she is a huge KHL fan, more so even than NHL.
Yes.
So always on top of things over there. Loves the bigger ice surfaces that they have in Europe, and can tell you how to pronounce all their names properly because I know I can't.
Yeah.
That's a skill.
Yeah. So today we had the Masterson Trophy nominations. And for those of you that missed out on that, we had Jaromir Jagr, Dominic Moore, and Manny Malhotra as the finalists. And if any of you know anything about those particular guys, I personally felt that Jagr seems like the odd one out there of that story. I don't know about you guys.
I totally agree.
I would
don't
agree with that
necessarily
as well.
know that old age is a reason to be nominated for something.
No. Has Timu been nominated yet?
I don't know on that. I know that this year for the Ducks at least, it was Francois Beauchemin.
Yeah.
Because he battled back from the ACL surgery. I think Timu may have been nominated last year though.
Okay.
I think they nominated Jagr for the dedication to hockey because of his training and how well he's been doing, and he's 42, 43 now, and he does have a huge dedication to hockey. But I think that there are other people who deserved it more. I think Dominic Moore has this in the bag. I think it's no contest, personally. He buried his wife last year from a rare form of liver cancer and has started up a foundation in her name to help fund research for rare cancers because rare cancers don't really get much funding because not many people get them, and they don't really they're not the money makers like breast cancer and I don't know, pancreatic cancer and stuff like that. So I really, I'm rooting for him for that, I guess. I mean, I think the Masterton in that case is not an award you want to win because your wife died or your child died, like Jose Theodore won a few years ago. So I don't know. And I've read about Manny Malhotra's story, but I don't know too much about it. Um, does anyone like have a better take on that?
Yeah, Malhotra was hit in the eye with a puck while playing for Vancouver, and he underwent a bunch of surgeries and then last season the Canucks placed him on IR, saying that they consider it too dangerous for him to play. So Malhotra, however, has fought through that, and he was given a professional tryout in October for the Charlotte Checkers, who were the Hurricanes' AHL affiliate, and then eventually he earned his way back up and got an NHL contract with Carolina. So
Yep.
a lot of people felt like his career was over last season.
Not very many people expected to see him back. So to
I guess
see him,
it is kind of amazing because like if you're getting to the point where you're getting a professional tryout at a place, that means like no NHL team wants you. And coming back from like an eye injury like that is just always really, really amazing. Like Mark Stahl doing that too. Um,
Yeah.
so that is a crazy injury to come back from.
If you've ever also had eye problems, you know how tricky those can be because you have a lot of very small veins and things like that in your eye where any particular stress, it's easy to burst a blood vessel in your eye and things like that, which obviously, unfortunately, today's science still isn't good enough a lot of times to fully heal an eye as well as you would like because it's pretty complex. Nando is flipping tables, so
What, does he want us to talk about his questions?
he
yes, he
does.
does.
Nando, we'll get to those. Don't worry. We see you.
No, no, stop it. My rabbit's like trying to dig a hole into my like mattress. Sorry.
That's what they do. They dig.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
dig and they screw.
Pretty much.
Well, he's neutered, so you don't have to worry about that.
T-Rex says, "No kidding. Hey, your wife died at a horribly young age. Have a prize."
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's horrible. But it's
Of that ilk, like I know Jose Theodore won it when his like infant son died. I was kind of surprised that Calgary didn't nominate Matt Stajan, but that could also be a personal thing. Like he was just like, yeah, please don't nominate me for that.
Oh, I hope we don't have pictures with him accepting the trophy like we had of Gujar accepting the Conn Smythe that one year.
Oh God, that's the
Oh, that
saddest
would be
picture.
horrible.
Oh, Sajagir made me so happy though because the Ducks didn't win.
Yeah, but can
You
you
know what?
imagine?
I have a cool story about that actually. Even though the Ducks lost, and I thought you felt bad for Jaguar as a human being, but I was playing in a roller hockey league that year, and our assistant team captain didn't show up to the game that week, and the next game came along, and we were like, where were you last week? You didn't call, text, anything, and he's like, oh, my friend in New Jersey got me a ticket to Game 7, so I flew out there. I'm like, okay, fine. I guess you could miss a game. That's a valid excuse.
Yeah,
So he flew from Anaheim to New Jersey just to go to that Game 7. I'd be like, that'd be nice if I could do that.
right?
Yeah, I know. Just drop everything in a drop of a hat and have someone give you a ticket.
I think he still had to pay for the plane flight, but
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
sure
have to worry
I'm
about
guessing the
that.
plane flight was almost the same price as a Game 7 ticket. So
Yeah. I fly for free until I'm 26 because of my dad. So
how's that?
my dad's an airline pilot.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Getting back to the Masterton, is there anybody who, if you had to pick somebody to replace Yager on that list of the 3 nominations, who would it be?
Chris Letang.
Hmm.
I mean, he had a stroke in January, and he's like now taking it in stride. He's like promoting awareness for it and stuff like that because like he's 26 in peak condition. If he can have a stroke, anyone can have a stroke. So like I don't know. Like I'm proud of like the work he's doing to promote awareness for strokes and stuff like that. And you know, coming back from a stroke where people like that's a life altering, you know, event. Like people don't normally sometimes like they don't come back like to 100%. Like they have like their speech is impaired and like their face doesn't
Well, no
really.
offense, but I would say that some Pens fans would say he's not come back 100% based on how he's played.
Yeah, no, I agree. He has been kind of bad, but like
He's rusty.
he is rusty and like you know I don't know. But like coming back for something like that is a lot better, a lot bigger than being 42 and having a lot of good conditioning.
Or coming back from a broken leg. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
like
I agree. Chris Letang definitely got snubbed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he didn't
I
just
know
have
a
a
lot of
stroke; he
Lightning
had a
fans
hole in his
wanted to
heart
see
too.
it given to
oh yeah,
to
yeah,
to
the hole in his heart.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely in agree with you guys.
I think we're in agreement on that one.
Yeah. An honorable mention to Stamkos. I know some other people on the Twitter are saying Stamkos. Stamkos definitely, but that's a broken leg. I would have to give
I
stroke/hole in your heart a little bit more than a broken leg. So
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and that's specifically why I said coming back from a broken leg, because I know there are a lot of Lightning fans that wanted it to go to Stamkos because of the broken leg, but I mean, you have to look at both of those injuries side by side and be able to realize that one's a little more significant than the other.
yeah.
for sure.
So
We got a minute left in this Rangers and Philly game, and it looks like Philly's pulled the goalie. So
ooh, buddy, here we go.
exciting times.
Yeah, got it up on my side screen.
Well, let us know if something happens.
Yeah, give us a shout.
I've got the pregame for the Wild and Avalanche up on my TV. So
Of course.
Oh, they're waving off something.
I know since we brought up Yager that Ryan, you wanted to discuss Yager's extension today.
uh, pretty much every Devils fan has shouted me down since I said it, and they've kind of pulled me away from how I thought about it. Um, my original thought was that he's just too old for the money that they're giving him. I know it's only a 1 year deal, so it's kind of playing with house money and the fact that he's gotten better ever since he's come back to the NHL every year. But there's a point at which he's gonna get worse, and I just I know he has a solid work ethic, and I really don't want to put the guy down because he's doing stuff at 42 that I can't even do at 25. So you know what I'm getting at. Um, I'm not 100% sure if he's worth that much money and if that's really the direction that the Devils need to be going in. They're getting older, and they seem to be okay with that. And at this point, they kind of need to start getting younger again, so that they can revitalize their team and start repositioning themselves so that they can get back into the playoff hunt again. A lot of Devils fans brought up the fact that he was the best player on their team last year, which is awesome for a 42-year-old to be the best player on your team. But I guess my point is that if he's the best player on your team, then you need to be making other moves to get better players. If you want to,
Better.
huh?
No, no.
Okay. I mean, you need to be making moves to be getting better talent because you're not going to go very far if your best player is 42. He does have a very solid leadership aspect about him with his work ethic and all of the experience that he does have. So I can definitely see them signing him as a role model for the younger players and and as just someone to have in that locker room to really help guide the team. Um, have they come out with the official details of that yet? Because the last I saw it was just
It was,
between
yeah,
five
that
and
I
six.
haven't seen anything yet, but that might have changed.
If they signed him for something like 2.5 to 3 million with a crap ton of bonuses, I could say that that's really a good signing, and I hope that's what they did. Um, but I'm just worried that they gave him more than that guaranteed. And I don't. If they gave him more than that guaranteed, I'd be a little bit worried. So, and I guess they have cap space to work with. So one signing of a Yager isn't really going to hurt them too much. But as this signing goes for the direction of their team going forward, that's why I'm worried about it. I guess is my point.
For sure.
So
Totally agree with you on that. Speaking of cap space, Nando has a question. He says, seeing as Columbus has a large amount of free agents for the following years, who do you see as the most essential players to bring back to the lineup? Now, when you look at their cap space, this or next season you have Derek McKenzie gone, Blake Como gone. They're both UFAs. Aside from that, though, the rest of your forwards right now are there for at least another year. So if you think that they are, if you think, I would say maybe Foligno, although I don't know if his $3 million a year is something that you want to keep doing based on his production. You have Anisimov locked up for a couple more years. I love Dubinsky. Obviously, I think you should lock him up, but you have
yes,
Umberger and Nathan Horton locked up for a few more years as well. I'm not that familiar with your younger players and the guys coming up in the AHL, but I know that Boone Jenner is still locked up for 2 more years on his entry-level contract. Ryan Johansson is a restricted free agent, so you're going to have to lock him up
yes,
because he is an amazing young player.
Yeah,
yes.
he
He is my
was.
favorite player to watch on that team and somebody that just impresses me more and more the more that I see him.
He was amazing during the Penn series. Like he was great. Um, I don't know. I can't really explain like why, but I just like noticed him a lot more than I noticed a lot of other players. Oh, and Rangers won, by the way.
Yeah, Rangers 2-1 over Philly. So it's going to be Rangers versus Penguins in the second round.
Which pretty much no one was rooting for because everyone wanted Flyers, Penguins, or
Columbus.
Columbus Rangers.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm
Um,
okay with it.
Speaking to the Columbus cap space question, I would definitely agree with Johansson. He's someone that they're gonna want to have really long term. He could definitely become the face of the franchise. Um, I definitely agree with Dubinsky. I could, I see him as the most likely case of being named captain for next year. With how he played in the playoffs this year, and how he led the team up against Crosby, I could definitely see him being named captain. I could also see Ryan Johansson being named captain if he's able to um, continue to astound the way he has played and play the way he has played. Um, Other names that I think they probably will want to keep around if they can. Um, let's see, Cam Atkinson and Jack Skilley and Corey Tropp. Corey Tropp didn't really play with the team all that much this year, but when he did, he played really well. He impressed me whenever I watched him and saw him on the ice. So I think he's definitely someone that they could bring in to be a bottom six role player for sure going forward over the next couple years. And I could definitely see him maturing enough to get into like the second line. So
As far as like captaincy you were talking about,
yeah.
I think that you would want to maybe lock up Dubinsky before you give it to him.
Oh,
And
yes, I would agree
if
with
he's not
that.
going to lock it up, then I would give it to Jack Johnson.
I would agree
Jack
with
Johnson
that.
had a great second half to the season and a great playoffs as well. He obviously he came up with the Kings, and he had a lot of turnover and plus-minus problems. I know he still struggles with that sometimes, but he seems to his maturity level and his just defensive awareness seems to have gotten better this year. So if that's the case, because he's always been a great skater, so if his mental game is catching up to his physical game, then I would give him the captaincy because he obviously seems to be motivated right now.
Yeah, he's definitely motivated. So I could definitely see them give it. Like I said, it's really either or in my mind. And I would agree that if they want to give it to Dubinsky, they try to get him signed first. That way he's not holding out for more money, down the line because, hey, you gave me the captaincy.
Yeah.
So, quick update on the Avs Wild game. The Avs were on a power play. There was a scramble in front of the net, and the puck went in, but it looks like they waved it off for goalie interference, and the play is under review. It's really one of those toss-up goalie interference calls, so we'll see how they call it here.
Those damn goalie interference calls.
I hate
Oh,
goaltender interference. I think it should be reviewable.
they gave it to him. It's a goal.
It's a goal?
1-0 Colorado.
All right.
And who scored it?
Holden?
Yep, Holden.
Okay.
Nick Holden, I think his name is?
Yes, it was Nick Holden.
Okay.
So.
Well, since we're doing updates right now, we got 5 games in the AHL tonight too. Currently, Scranton and Bingham are tied 2-2 in overtime. Manchester and Norfolk just ended the third period, still tied 0-0. Texas Stars are beating Oklahoma City 2-1 in the second period. And St. John's beat Albany 1-0. And Abbotsford beat Grand Rapids 2-1. Grand Rapids, of course, is the defending champion in the AHL. So it's a big win for Abbotsford at Grand Rapids.
Where is Abbotsford?
Abbotsford is, I think, let me look it up. I don't want to say I'm wrong.
Is it in, like,
It's
Canada?
in British Columbia.
Okay.
I thought it was in Alberta. I would have been wrong, so I'm glad I looked it up.
I have no idea where most of the teams are related to their, NHL's affiliates. I know, Worcester is the Sharks, and that's in, Massachusetts, and, Manchester's in, New Hampshire?
Yes.
That's ridiculous. Having to
Why?
call someone up and having to fly across the state, or across the country, for, a call-up is insane.
Well, the Kings are actually pushing to have some of the West Coast teams form a California division or
Okay.
just a West Coast division HL because the Kings have their ECHL team here in Ontario, which is about 50 miles from Los Angeles. And the Ontario Reign, it's Ontario, California, not Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, I was thinking, wait,
They're
Ontario is like
yeah,
kind of far.
it's a city. It's a city here in California. But that stadium is pretty big, could easily hold an AHL team, and the Reign, what's their name? REIGN, is the leading. They lead the attendance in ECHL, and I think that this season they were second in minor league hockey overall.
Wow.
So there is enough support for an AHL team here, for at least Manchester if they wanted to move those guys here, but I don't know about the rest of the Western teams. So we'll see how that goes. But I know the Kings would like to do that if they
Yeah,
could.
because calling
But
someone
they've tried other Western leagues out here, and a lot of them fold. They had the IHL, they had the West Coast Hockey League. The ECHL absorbed a lot of the West Coast Hockey League teams, like the Ontario Reign and Bakersfield Condors and things like that. But now they're all part of the East Coast Hockey League. Technically, it's not called the East Coast Hockey League anymore. They just named it the ECHL because there were so many Western teams now since they got absorbed.
Yeah, the ECHL stands for ECHL.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't. You're like, why is it called that? No reason. It's just the ECHL. No. Yeah,
Yeah.
we all know it used to be called the East Coast Hockey League. You can rename it whatever you want, but we all know what it stands for.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of hilarious.
So we got a few more minutes here. I just wanted to talk. I know we've already talked pretty much about tonight's games, but round two, well, we got a chance here. We obviously don't know the last two of the Western Conference teams, but in the East Coast, what do you guys see for those two series? We got Boston and Montreal, and now we have the Penguins and New York.
Huh.
I foresee a lot of blackouts and games not being played in the Boston and Montreal series. Personally, I don't
Why do
really
you
like
say that?
I don't really like either team. So I
What do you
Yeah.
mean by blackouts, though?
like just, lights going out, lots of storms and games being canceled. It, you know, all electricity's gone, they can't turn on the lights, that kind of thing.
Why? Why do you foresee
Yeah,
that?
why? I don't get it.
It A lot of people, when they don't want either team to win, they say they want the stadium to collapse on the teams, right?
Oh, see,
'Cause-
I root for a meteor to hit the stadium.
yeah, see, I'd rather not root for anyone to die, so I'm just rooting that the games don't get played. I don't like
Okay.
either. I don't like either team.
Yeah, I
So,
hate the Habs and I hate the Bruins, so it's just like I would rather play the Habs, so I'm rooting for the Habs.
and to be
So,
honest, I don't
Well,
really know. I don't really know enough about either to really give a solid, definitive answer on who I think will win either. So,
okay. Well, I think that Boston is the clear favorite, even though Montreal did have a season series lead over them. Boston, well, I guess they were 2-2, or excuse me, no, yeah, Montreal was 3-1 against Boston. So Montreal plays them tough every time. They now have Vanek, who's always been a Bruin killer. I think that Montreal's going to play them tough again this time, but I think that Boston's just a defensive playoff type of team, and unless Rask just collapses or somebody gets hurt, then I think that Boston's going to lock this one up in probably 6 games. It might go 7, but if they drag this to 7, I think it'll be a miracle by Montreal because I think they're going to get beat up by Boston. Boston's going to come out hard, and Montreal just can't match their physicality. But I don't know how much their advantage in speed is going to play in the playoffs. As far as Penguins in New York goes, I don't know if you want to chime in on that one, how you feel the Penguins are going to do, Brittany.
I really don't know. Like, New York is one of those teams that, like, it could go either way with us. Like, we could either play really well and get a bunch of pucks past Lundqvist, or Lundqvist is just a freaking wall, and we can't get anything past him. So, like, that series could go either way, and it depends on our goaltending, and it depends on their goaltending, pretty much. And
I
also, like, Malkin stepping it up in Game 6 for, or was like, what game did we go to?
6. He went to 6.
Yeah, Game 6. Malkin stepping it up in Game 6 and getting a hat trick was really, really welcoming to see. Like, there are times where Malkin just is like, I'm going to be the best player in the world, and then he is. He just turns it on, and it's just, don't get in his way because he will get run over. So if he does that again, and if Crosby steps up his game and starts scoring, I think that we won't have a problem. Like, we'll win this in 6. But if they don't, it'll be a little more difficult because, like, we had to rely on our secondary scoring. And no offense to Bobrovsky, but he's no Lundqvist. So I think that we need to see more from Malkin and Crosby if we want to have a decent chance at winning this series.
Two things I would be worried about if I were a New York Ranger fan. One is that I saw a stat today with Lundqvist, how he plays in games where he could close out an opponent, and it's not good at all. It sounds like he had at least a pretty decent game tonight. I mean, he got the win and everything. But if he can't close out an opponent when you need him to, then you're gonna have some problems. Also, we haven't seen playoff Fleury yet, really. I mean, we really haven't. I know people were joking about it earlier in the Columbus Pittsburgh series, but to be honest, he let in a couple of soft goals, sure, especially in Game 4. He screwed the pooch on that one. But in Games 5 and 6, he came back and he played really well. He's not in his own head yet. And to be honest, I think Bilesma, when he came out after Game 4, pretty much chastising Fleury for, how he played, I think that has really bolstered him. And I would be kind of worried if I were the Rangers having to face him going into the next round.
Yeah, but I think like Fleury, some of his bad plays were due to defensive meltdowns. Like the defense during the Columbus series was not good. We gave up a 3-0 lead at one point and lost. Like that's not acceptable. You need to protect leads like that, and they didn't. So
yeah,
I think if the defense steps it up, we shouldn't have a problem. If Fleury keeps it on point, then we shouldn't have a problem.
Scoring update. We have a tie game. Koivu scores for the Wild.
All right.
1-1.
We go.
Just 11:30 left about in the first period.
Wow. Oh, nice shot.
It was.
I'm watching on VLC. It's a little behind, so I just saw that right now.
Yeah, it was a nice shot.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it because you mentioned it, and I switched over to hockey streams, and it's like they're already playing again.
Yeah, I waited a little bit to bring it up because you were talking. So.
Yeah, if I get onto a ramble, feel free to just stop me.
So.
No, it's fine. You guys, I'm sorry, my computer just froze really quick. I couldn't hear you the last thing you said.
Go ahead.
Oh no, my computer froze. I cut for a second. So, anyway, yeah, the Wild just scored. Koivu, good shot. Or was that? That was Koivu, right?
Yes, it was Koivu.
Okay. Well, we're up on an hour right now, so we're gonna close this out here in a minute. But Nando has a question for Ryan. He says, does Ryan believe in the Pixar theory? This is the theory where all the Pixar movies exist within the same cartoon universe.
No.
How can Cars be in the same universe as all of the other ones?
Well, the theory is that in the early movies, magic happened and it brought the animals to life and it made them sentient, and then that grew into the cars and all that stuff, and I can't remember exactly how it goes now, but it eventually goes around full circle. I think um, it starts with Brave, where Merida meets that old lady in the cabin and all that. But the short answer is no. And if he really wants to have a conversation with me about it, we can have a conversation about it later. I just think it's a lot of people who have too much time on their hands, who like to look for patterns and things, and those patterns just happen to be there, so they just read too much into it. That's really what it is.
So I haven't seen Brave. Is it a good movie? Like, would you recommend it?
It is a really good movie. It is a really good movie. You know how people are saying that Frozen is like the first girl empowerment movie that Disney has done?
I thought Mulan was.
Yeah, Mulan totally was.
Mulan totally was, but people are bringing Frozen back into this, and a lot of them have not only forgotten Mulan, but they also forgot Brave, because Brave was totally a girl empowerment movie. So it's a great movie, and I would highly recommend it. I obviously own it. So.
Well, I mean, it's a Disney movie. You have to own it.
Yeah, it's kind of mandatory.
Yeah.
So. All right, that's all I have.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up. So, Britt, you have another podcast coming up tomorrow, right?
Yep. Our Hockey After Hour. It's at midnight. It's with Andrew Paddock, or APAD on Reddit, Ron in a Box, and at Sardines Packed, or Fluttershy91 on Reddit, also named Ben. So he goes by many names.
Ryan, what do you have planned this week?
I don't have any other podcasts currently planned. I jumped into the Wooden Ball show last week, since I wasn't able to be on this one, and I don't know if I'll jump into another one, but if I do, it'll be last minute.
Anything else you guys want to shout out on, or anything regarding our hockey or Twitter? Not so much.
My intramural hockey team is going to the playoffs for the first time since we started playing. So.
Oh wow!
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What position are you playing?
I play center.
Fantastic.
So.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
And I am going to pimp out the D4, the Mighty Daves podcast, which will be on Friday. I apologize that last week I had an emergency and I could not be there, and I know that Blinson had already said before that he had something going on too. He went to the Flyers game that night, so it should be back this week as far as I know. It was kind of a freak incident involving my car that I couldn't be there last week, so. But that's about it, and I'm sure that tomorrow night's podcast with Brittany will discuss the Western Conference Round 2 matchups whenever those get decided tonight.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank T-Rex and Nando especially for all their interactions on Twitter tonight. And if anybody else has any questions going forward that they want answered, they can always send us a message on Twitter or Reddit. My name is LA Kings Dave on both, and Brittany is Pitt Pens Pats on both. Ryan, I don't actually know your Twitter, but
it's the same.
It's okay. It's golf, the number 4, Miami, and that's about it. So you guys have a good night. If anybody else has anything else to say,
no, I'm good.
Nope. That's it.
All right. Everybody take care. Have fun watching the games. I'm gonna go stress out right now.
Oh yeah, that
And
game's probably
Drink
like
many beers.
All right.
Go Kings.
Go Kings.